Okay, welcome everybody to our final episode of GeoSeries for 2022. Apologies about the slight delay. As with these online events, sometimes there's some technical difficulties, but we got through it. So my name is Sky. I'm the marketing manager at European Space Imaging, and it's my pleasure to moderate today's session. By now, I'm sure that most of you are aware of how to use this platform, so I won't go over the nitty-gritty details, but I will say please use the chat only for general conversation and put all questions in the Q&A tab. You may find it easier to view this webinar in full screen mode. To do this, you simply press the button with the 4 arrows and it will enter into full screen mode for you. I hope that some of you joined the tables in the social lounge prior to this webinar. After the completion of the webinar, you'll automatically be placed back into the social lounge for further networking opportunities. The speakers, as well as my colleagues, will be there to continue the conversation and answer any last-minute questions that you may have. And of course, a recording of today's session will be sent out to you next week. So, with that out of the way, let's get on to the exciting part. Today, we actually have a full house of speakers for you. I'm delighted to be joined by Sales Director at European Space Imaging, Pascal Schicker, and Senior Product Manager for Core Imagery at Maxar Technologies, Matthew Cross. In addition, we have 2 military experts who are joining us today. Former Head of Operations at the European Union Satellite Centre and current Senior Advisor at European Space Imaging, Adriana Baptista, and former analyst at the French Ministry of Defence and current Deputy Director at GEOSeries, Jeff Roux. So I'd like to hand over now to Pascal, who will kick things off.
Thank you, Sky. Thank you very much. I will try to share my screen now and start the presentation. All right. Now you should see on my screen. So hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are. Thank you for attending this live webinar about HD technology. My name is Pascal Schicher, Sales Director at European Space Imaging. And as the first speaker, I would like to give you an overview of the HD product and how the product is integrated into European Space Imaging's order flow to provide it to our customers and resellers. First of all, let's have a look at the resolution development of the last 20 years, together also with an outlook of the future constellation that is coming up, namely Legion. And as you can see on the very left on my slide, we have the very first satellite in the VHR class. At that time, launched in 1999. The name of the satellite was Iconos. And with the image quality and the resolution, plus the lifetime of Iconos, all further satellites had to continue or beat this success story. The main improvement for all subsequent very high resolution satellite systems, apart from the speed and the agility, were done to improve the resolution of the satellites. So with the generation of Virtue 1, Virtue 2, and GeoEye that have been launched within the years 27 to 29, the class of the 50 centimeter satellites were inaugurated. Even though we could not process the full resolution at that time, we had to stick with 50 centimeters. The restriction at that time was set by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and was valid until 2014. That was exactly the time when also Virtue 3 was launched with a resolution of 30 centimeters. So this is currently now the portfolio of the Maxar satellites provided through European Space Imaging. And as you can see, the resolution was decreasing to nowadays the best resolution commercially available of 30 centimeters. On the very right side now, you can see one example of the new Legion satellite that is coming up. The constellation the first set of the two Legion constellations is going to be launched in January next year, so within the next 2 months, in sun-synchronous orbit. And another set of two satellites will be launched over the course of the year 23. And these satellites will fly in mid-inclined orbit. So the Legion satellites are going to be it's planned the resolution in 30 centimeter imagery, but I guess the future constellation, let's say Legion 5 and 6, and even afterwards, is maybe going to be even increased in terms of resolution, because customers and big accounts are asking for the better resolution of 30 centimeter. And now I would like to take you on a short minute on an excursion into the work on the ground that goes always hand in hand with the development of the satellites. In this slide, you see an overview of all our ground stations that have been operated by European Space Imaging over the last 20 years, together with the German Aerospace Center in Oberpfaffenhofen near Munich. On the very left, you see our first antenna named GEOROC, that was basically there to downlink to communicate with the Iconos satellite. And in the middle picture, you see our current ground station that is active since 2009. And with this ground station, it enabled us to downlink the imagery from the WorldView constellation in near real-time mode. Means we can disseminate the data and downlink it and push it to the customer's FTP site within 20 minutes after collection. And on the right side, this is going to be the new ground station. Mainly the antenna dish is going to be the same, but all infrastructure is going to be changed. So we will remove all other parts and get it updated in order to also support near real-time imagery delivery to our customers. And our objective is even to undercut the timelines of 20 to 30 minutes to be better than this, and to have it the imagery within 15 to 20 minutes. But back to the resolution and the topic of today's webinar. What is HD technology? So the HD technology improves the resolution and the visibility of an image, and give a look and feel of a sharper image. It's a refinement in terms of aesthetics and clarity, and gives the opportunity to spot a detail with more confidence that you had not found with the same confidence in the original image. Matthew Cross from Maxar will definitely go into more detail to explain a bit the technology behind the HD algorithm. But it's also important to understand what HD is not providing. So HD is not the native resolution of the image. The image itself, the HD image itself, has more pixels, but the ground sample distance does not change. As I mentioned before, it helps for confidence to find the little detail, and I guess Adriano and Jeff will have a lot of examples to spot these details. But HD can't do magic. So whenever the object is not present in the original image, the HD technology will not show this detail in the HD image. So what imagery could be improved by HD? So basically, it's all imagery from tasking to archives that can be improved, of course, in different classes. So based on the native resolution on the satellites, the HD class could be 30 centimeter, for example, for WorldView 1 and WorldView 2. For GeoEye, because the native resolution of GeoEye is 41 centimeter, it could be HD'd to 20. And for WorldView 3 and WorldView 4, the maximum resolution of HD product is 15 centimeter. And the only requirement is that for all imagery, the off-Nadir angle has to be less than 30 degrees, so within 0 and 30, and the sun elevation has to be more than 15. I will show you two examples now, if it works. Yeah, it works. I will show you two examples for the I would say, coarser resolution. So this one is a WorldView 2 image with 46 centimeter native resolution, which was down sampled or down HD'd to 30 centimeters. So you can see this is the pyramids of Giza, and we will zoom in to the Great Sphinx of Giza. And I hope that that you can see it in full clarity. I always take the cast to distinguish or to understand the resolution of the image, and with this image you can distinguish quite nicely. You can see the window shields of the cars, and that makes the overall impression, and it's clear that this is not a 50 centimeter image, it's much better. And another example, which is a bit of a cultural shock now, because it's showing a toll station between Lisbon and Almada before the bridge. And this one shows, the zoom in shows nicely. It's a GeoEye image, and it shows nicely the image quality from an GeoEye HD to 20 centimeter. So a quick summary of the ordering HD at OISI. So HD can be used for tasking imagery, for archive imagery, basically throughout all sensors. Again, the off nadir has to be less than 30 degrees and sun elevation more than 15. There is basically no delivery delay for archive imagery, and European Space Imaging offers also to order this product through our API as an option. So this is basically all from my side, and I would like to hand over to Matthew Cross from Maxar. He is the Senior Product Manager, Core Imagery at Maxar. And I will stop this sharing. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me see if I can get my screen shared. Okay, I'm assuming that you can see my presentation okay. Oh, excuse me, wrong presentation. Let me, presentation is not coming up. Just one moment, please. Okay, I'm assuming now you can see my presentation.
Yes.
Thank you. So thank you very much for having me today. I really appreciate the time to be able to share information about our HD product for Maxar. We're very excited about it. And we're very excited about our teaming arrangement with European Space Imaging. European Space Imaging is a vital part of our team regarding regions. So we very much appreciate the time today to speak to you and try to learn more about what sorts of things you're interested in through the chat at the end of this presentation. Today, I'm going to be talking about HD technology and ACOMP specifically. I'll go into some details on both of them as we go through the presentation. So first, let's talk about HD technology. So what is HD technology? Many of you know about this already, but what we've done at Maxar is we've developed a technique that improves the visual clarity of an image. Again, as Pascal mentioned earlier, we don't change the actual cells of our data, but we're increasing the ability to be able to look for more information and detail within the imagery itself through our technique. So what you're going to get is an aesthetically refined image. It's going to have very precise edges in it. In fact, what the HD technology does is it actually enhances long linear features within the image, so you can discern the sides of features better. The actual features themselves resolve themselves a little bit better within the image. Again, does not change the native resolution, and does not it does increase the number of pixels, but it doesn't change the actual native sensor resolution. So what we can do with HD technology is we can take our full suite of satellite imagery from our constellation and apply that to our imagery. So if you're looking at something like Worldview 1 or Worldview 2, which we have, our native resolution is somewhere between 40 and 60 centimeters resolution, we can actually improve the visual clarity of that imagery by having a 30 centimeter HD generated from that. With our Worldview 3 satellite, because we have a native resolution of around 31 centimeters, we can actually generate a 50 centimeter HD image from that particular suite of imagery that you get from the satellite from Worldview 3. And so when you're talking about actually understanding about what sort of details you can see within the image itself, the National Imagery Interpretability Rating Scale, I'm hoping many of you know what that is. It's a U.S. government rating scale that defines image and feature interpretability based on resolution. We're hitting around a number of 6 to 7, depending upon whether you order 30 centimeter HD imagery or 15 centimeter HD imagery. This allows you to see very fine details within features within the imagery, like windshields of cars. If you have enough people, you can see the people, you can discern people pretty easily. There's colors come out very clearly within the imagery. So, and we'll be able to see some of that here in some of the examples I'm going to show in a few minutes. Applications we believe are important to be able to be supported from this imagery. Of course, mapping and monitoring within the actual area of interest, to be able to see targets and features within the image itself. Analytics, I'll have an example of how we can improve our AI ML capability by being able to have the artificial intelligence machine learning application be able to draw from the higher resolution imagery to be able to make better decisions about what features are there. Asset monitoring, right-of-way planning. There's people are using this now to discern, where traffic patterns are within cities. There's a lot of applications for this HD. I could go on, but I should go on with the presentation. So advantages of the HD process, of course, helps customers identify smaller features on the ground. That's what it's all about, right? And be able to discern those features in a way that there's actionable information that you can gather from the image itself. Can be used on imagery collected from a variety of platforms. We've experimented using this proprietary technology on different imagery beyond our Worldview 3 satellites, and it does work. Of course, you're going to get, if you have very coarse resolution, you're going to only have that. And so what we're talking about is, when we start with high resolution to begin with as an input, you're going to get even higher resolution, higher interpretability in the imagery as the output. And one of the interesting things that I think has happened with many of our customers in Southeast Asia and other locations, but you might find this also an advantage, is that it actually increases the supply of 30 centimeter imagery over an area. So we can use some of our coarser resolution technologies, Worldview 2, Worldview 1, GeoEye, and actually create a 30 centimeter product from that. So if you're already generating native 30 centimeter imagery from Worldview 3, the archive of data you could build from that can be increased by actually performing HD on a coarser resolution product. So what does HD do? Let me go back to this slide here. Sorry. Again, what we're doing is we're taking the native resolution and we're actually creating we're doubling the actual number of pixels within the image. We're able to actually extract information internally within the pixel to be able to define edges and features better. That information actually is embedded in the pixel, and it's about just extracting that information out into a finer resolution. So this visual representation should help understand that. So we take an original non-HD image, which you can see on the left is actually quite blurry in many respects. You can still see features, but they're not quite as discerned as the image on the right. So you can make out an individual, again, windshields. Features within the road network are clearly identified, center lines, and other features. In fact, one of the things that's really important with this technology is that you can define features within vegetation quite clearly. You can see the canopies of the trees are much more easily defined canopy you see here. So there is an application there as well. So let's talk about HD 30 centimeter to begin with, and then I'll show you some examples of HD 15 centimeter. So this is, I think, a pretty good representation about how you can potentially build out an archive of 30 centimeter imagery using some of our coarser resolution technology. So the image on the right is our native 50 centimeter image of a road intersection in Southeast Asia. And as you can see, the features there's features there. We can probably make out cars, but things aren't very clear. If we actually perform the HD process on that 50 centimeter native image, you can see that it actually replicates the 30 centimeter native data. This is taken obviously from a different time frame, but this is the output. The center image is the output from the 50 centimeter native on the right. So it starts to be able to match up with the 30 centimeter native data that you could get off of our Worldview 3 satellite. Here's another example again of how HD can increase the archive of 30 centimeter data. Again, 50 centimeter native on the right hand side of the screen, the 30 centimeter process generated from that image in the center compared to the 30 centimeter native. There are times at which the actual HD process from 30 centimeter is able to discern features a little bit better than the native, depending upon the quality of the native data originally collected, and also the look angle, illumination angle, that kind of thing. So there are times in which it can certainly be a little bit better, but really what we're looking for is to be able to match what we're getting from 30 centimeter native data. And this is, I think, an excellent example of how that HD process can actually improve the interpretability of the image when we have the 30 centimeter native data on the left and the HD process from a coarser resolution satellite on the right, but the HD process performed on that image. So in this particular example, the image is actually a little bit better, a little bit more interpretable than the actual native data. Let's move on to 15 centimeter HD. And this is the kind of imagery that we're going to be able to get. And I've got some examples here in just a few minutes of how the native 30 looks compared to 15. But this is the kind of thing that we can do. We can really get a huge amount of clarity within the image on the features that are within it. So buses and cars, all different kinds of infrastructure can be clearly identified within the image. And again, linear features really sharpen up within this process. So here's a really good example. And in fact, this is one of the use cases I want to talk about in a few minutes regarding AI ML applications. The 30 centimeter native data on the left, and after we applied the 15 centimeter, the HD process to it and generate a 15 centimeter product, you can see how much more interpretable the image is when we do that. Cars become much clearer. You can actually start to make out the model of the car. Not just the fact that it's actually a car. You can clearly see that with the white car in the lower left image, and that is much more identifiable as a type of car versus just a car. Again, tree canopies, it's a little hard to see, but I've got one in the extreme lower right area of the image. The tree canopy features, the textural information within the tree really pops out. And of course, these features on this rooftop, which are solar panels, are more easily identifiable than they are in the native imagery. This is the back end of a cruiser that has a helipad, and of course the image is clear, that you can see the features much better in the HD'd image. One of the interesting features that happens here is that it's not just these long linear features, but it's these short linear features, these gun emplacements on the boat that you can see much clearer than you can from the original native data. I'd like to show you a 15 centimeter image of a plane on the tarmac of an airport. I'm going to focus in on right here, this plane of interest, and we're going to zoom in on that. And that's the 15 centimeter HD plane. So you can actually read Star Alliance on the side of the plane. The different control surfaces of the plane become quite evident. The ailerons here, you can see that, and the elevator surfaces, as well as any little radomes that are on the plane, that's clearly identifiable. And all the different features within the actual tarmac are quite identifiable. Another image, this is from Russia, and you can see the Ilyushin transport aircraft as well as some military aircraft on the tarmac. If you zoom in, you can see how clearly the image actually stays as you zoom into the image. So that little square is the area of interest that we're blowing up right here. So the visual acuity of the image is retained as you zoom into the image. You'd have to zoom in pretty far to get this pixelated. And then one of my more favorite images that I think we've ever generated from the HD process, I think we all know what this is, but you can see the queue here. These are people actually standing underneath the Eiffel Tower, waiting to get into the Eiffel Tower. I've experienced that myself. It's not fun to be in that queue, but these are people nevertheless in that queue, as well as you can see different people at this road intersection. And then, of course, the different vegetative information, people here on the Champs-Élysées that are in the park, and also the different textural information of the vegetation along that route. So a lot of information here. One of the things I'd really like to point out in this image is the superstructure that you can see clearly within the Eiffel Tower. And this is what HD does. You can see the individual structure parts within there very clearly. And that is one of the byproducts of HD, that long linear features, longer the better, but also short features can be identifiable in the image. So some applications here. We did some early tests on using an AI ML application to look at road networks and light pole identification. The preliminary results are quite good. We had an error rate of about 50 centimeter for the native 30 centimeter imagery, and that decreased to about 10 centimeters for the HD. So feature identification HD. And then the other AI ML application that we just published on is to be able to identify solar panels within imagery. And solar panels are quite difficult because the features are quite subtle in the imagery, and using an open source AI ML object detection model, which is this YOLT version 4 is a kind of a standard open source model, right off the shelf to way outperform the original native model predictions. And you can see one example here of the model prediction from HD after running AI ML on the HD image compared to the ground truth, and it's pretty close. So summary, it's a significant upgrade to our core imagery products, enables fast and accurate data extraction, improvement of clarity in the image. Very good for using this for AI ML applications. Some of the benefits are increasing the tasking coverage, especially resolution and satellite assets to create 30 centimeter HD products. If you're building a 30 centimeter archive, you can really help to do that by using our 30 centimeter HD product from that. So, and again, I'd be happy to entertain questions at the end of this as I finish. Very quickly, I'd like to talk about one other process that we've developed at Maxar. We're very proud of this. It's called ACOMP. ACOMP is an atmospheric compensation process by where we actually take an image and correct for the atmospheric issues, both Rayleigh and me scattering within the image. And it's going to minimize atmospheric effects due to haze, water vapor, particulates, as well as Rayleigh scattering regarding look angle. And so what we're doing here, it's quite amazing. We've been able to do this actually on an image by image basis. So there's not a generalized atmospheric correction that's applied across all imagery. Every atmospheric correction is specific to the image. And in fact, on a pixel by pixel basis, we do this. So it's very specific to the image that's being corrected. The output, the end result, is going to be that you're going to go from what we typically get on an image, which is top of atmospheric reflectance, and we're going to get the actual surface reflectance of an image. And this does well in almost every single environment, including very moist environments like the tropics. We were actually able to correct for the blue band in the image, which is quite amazing because short wavelength EM reflectivity is affected greater by scattering than longer wavelength EM reflectivity. And let me show you a couple of examples here. So this is what you would typically get. This is the top of atmosphere reflectance. If you did a Rayleigh only reflectance correction, which is correcting for look angle, it's the center image. And then if we looked at everything in the image and corrected on a pixel by pixel basis, this is what the image is going to look like. This is the true surface reflectance of the Earth represented actually in the image itself. And in fact, the output of that process is going to be a surface reflectance value per pixel between 0 and 1, which represents 0 to 100% reflectivity for that wavelength. A more dramatic example, I think this might be our most dramatic example of this, Beijing, China, from August 12th, 2012. You can see how hazy and obscured the ground is in Beijing. And then when we apply ACOMP, this is actually what we get. This is the true surface, what it looks like without the atmosphere in the way. So I'll stop there, and I look forward to questions later on in the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matthew. The first question that comes into my mind is how to connect, or if it's connectable to the both products with each other. So ACOMP and HD. But I guess the answer is not yet, right?
Yeah, absolutely. What we can do is we can perform the ACOMP process on the imagery first. And then once the image is corrected, because you would want to correct the native resolution imagery first. And then from there, you can generate an HD product from that. So you can get the best of both worlds.
Oh, great. Okay, then over to the experts. Adriano and Jeff, please. Who's starting of you?
Jeff?
Jeff, please.
Hello. So thank you for the invitation to be able to share a little bit my experience. So here we go. So before to show you some military example, what is the benefit of 50 centimeters on satellite imagery, I will share with you some identification techniques used by military imagery analysts. So basically, we have to identify specific keys on the equipment in addition of the measurement, so the length and the width. So for example, for aircraft, we are using a weft system. So weft for wing. So for the wing, we try to describe the shape or to identify the types of the wings, the number of engine, the shape of the fuselage, and the shape of the tails, for example, and so on. So the more we have some details, we can identify with accuracy an equipment. So this is the same thing for helicopters. Here we will try to have the number of blades or the shape of the fuselage. Do we have some wings? And so on. For warship, we will try to count the number of funnels or the number of masts, the type of masts. Do we have any helideck or not? For land vehicle, here we use the HAT system. So HAT for the hull, the shape of the hull, what kind of turrets that we have, what kind of armament, and in addition, do we have specific features? So with the example, furthermore, you will see that a crane can be very useful to identify the equipment. And for radar equipment, we will try to see the aerials. So how many antennas that we have, what kind of antennas is it? And do we have a support cabin or is it on a vehicle? So now on example, so I will start with a bigger example to go through vehicles at the end. So for aircraft example, so in 30 centimeters resolution, here we can see an antenna of 24-26. Okay, and thanks to the 15 centimeters, we can see the observation window on the left side of the equipment of the planes. So here we are sure that we have an AN26 curve. So here we have an hovercraft in Bandar Abbas site. So okay, it's quite easy to identify, but what is fun here is that we can see the blades on the hovercraft. Again, on Bandar Abbas, here we have a Thunder class, and which is really good with 50 centimeters. It's to see that we count the number of windows on the front of the superstructure of the warship, in addition of other criteria like the missile at the backside. And just close to this warship, we have the Shaitarowi class, which is a new one from September. And here, a key identification is the weapon in the front of the ship. Here you can see that it's really a little ship in 16 meters length. So here, how we can identify the key cap, the PCAP 2 class, it's with the front hatch that you can see. So we go deeper in detail. Here with the land vehicle example, we can see an MDK3 in yellow, thanks to the excavation system and the front blade. And just for the history, this kind of equipment are used by Wagner to create the Wagner line at Luhansk. And just close to the MDK3, we have the BAT2. And thanks to the high HD resolution, we can see very well the crane at the back side and again the front blade. For a radar example, here we have a high screen and you can see the identification keys, which is a shape just under the antenna. On this example, we have a niobium SV, and we can identify it with a number of antennas. So thanks to the HD resolution, again, we can count the number of antennas. So we can see in totality that we have 14 antennas, and on the image, we can count it the half of the antennas. And regarding anti-aircraft example, here we have a Pantsir S1. So in this configuration, we can see in orange the missiles at each side, okay? And at the back side of the turret here, we have the radar, okay? And it's in the lying position. So it's quite difficult to learn on these identification keys. So in GEO4I, we have developed software that gathering all equipment and with all these identification keys. So for each kind of class, you can put the length and the width, and in addition, you can add the identification keys to be sure to have the right equipment and to identify it with accuracy. So this software can work with ArcGIS Pro and with our software GeoSpace also. And contribution to artificial intelligence, you have seen that we can identify with a high accuracy some little equipment. So this is very good to create an accurate data set to train new artificial intelligence models. So thank you for your attention. And if you have any question or if you want to reach me directly, I will share my contact on the chat. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Over to you, Adriano.
Okay. Okay, good afternoon to you all, and thank you, Pascal, for the introduction, and Matt and Jeff for the impressive presentations. I don't have so many examples as you showed, but it's amazing what nowadays can be done, not only with artificial intelligence, but also with very high quality satellite data. And of course, this very high quality data and the excellent tools are essential to produce what we call meaningful information that so far still has to be done by humans. So we have to transform this into a product or service that people can use. So what I want to talk about to you in the next 10 minutes, and not focusing too much on the military side, is on the impact that these images, these super resolution images or the HD images, have in the daily work of the analysts, and in the cases where they need to analyze the imagery manually. Of course, in these cases, it's always best to have the perspective or the feedback of the other analysts themselves. So in this presentation, I will focus on some practical results that one important European space imaging end user was able to obtain with this type of imagery, and that was not possible, or it was more difficult to achieve with the native resolution. So I will start by showing you some examples provided by the EU Satellite Center. And uh, at the second part, I will also mention uh, a few areas that, in my personal opinion, this type of imagery could be extremely useful. So starting with the first example, and we see here activity, and already Matt spoke about the interpretability of the imagery. So basically, this means that the higher the resolution of the image, the more elements, the more features you could identify in the image, leading at the same time to analytical products that have much higher detail, quality, accuracy, and also reliability. Here, on comparing the same image 30 centimeters and 15 centimeters, you see that on the linear features there is a preservation of the details. Um, the edges are enhanced and smooth, uh, and the noise is removed. At the end of the day, what we see is that we have an image with that for visualization and for consequent interpretation is much nicer and provides more details, or the details are sharper when you look to the image. Looking to the image on the right, we could clearly identify HNA on the top of the trailer that is not possible on the native image. And this is a good example, but also we could more easily identify some probably human activity. Similarly, another example, again, using buildings and vehicles, you could see some more information on particularly the vehicles that could eventually lead to identify as a probable police vehicle instead of the left-hand side. That would be extremely difficult. And why is that? Why it is a police vehicle, you may ask? Because of the lights that are on the top of the vehicle. So it's possibly a police vehicle. Now, I want to also talk not only about this smoothing of the features, but also on objects that have an irregular shape and that could be different according to the time that they were captured or the location that they were captured. Uh, Objects do not that are not always the same or do not appear always the same in the image are very difficult to model, and therefore are very difficult to uh, be integrated in artificial intelligence tools. Like in this case. In this case, we see on the left image some blue tone objects that are partially concealed by the trees, and that could is difficult to identify, but with the HD resolution, we could, or they were identified by the analyst as a probably tent. Um, in this domain, of course, the experience and knowledge of the analyst is crucial, but also the level of detail is important. This example is related to irregular immigration, and one of Europe's greatest challenges nowadays is to succeed in stopping the illegal flow of migrants towards Europe. And Frontex, as the agent responsible for this activity, has a huge challenge to face, as these migrant groups are usually hidden in remote locations, are placed sort of difficult access, and the pattern, it's not always the same. So the better the image quality, the better the analysis will be. What we can see here is that the tree canopy is much sharper in the 15 centimeters HD image. Um, um, and it's easily to identify. and classify accordingly. Now, another example related to also irregular migration or possible irregular migration is in this case on the shoreline. On the left-hand side, we see on the rocks some reddish dots that are difficult to identify, and also they are irregular, and that are possible life vests, taking into context all the other elements. We could also see some probably human activity, some people on the rocks, and we see also a skiff. However, in the skiff, we do not see the interior of the skiff. Nevertheless, in some situation, it is even possible with this resolution, with HD imagery, to inside the skiff to detect, for instance, fuel drums inside the skiff. That could be an indicator the level of preparedness, and therefore can be used by the authorities to plan operations or to provide the necessary means in a timely manner. So this is the feedback that we received about the quality of the image and about the usefulness of the image. There are, and I will spend just a couple of minutes on possible other applications. And one of them is cultural heritage, identification of looting pits and damages in cultural heritage sites. And the looting of archaeological sites is today one of the major threats to the world's cultural heritage. And it can basically be defined as the destruction of sites in order to extract artifacts and then to sell in the illicit market. In the past, even this was used to finance some terrorist organizations. The looting normally of these places are done in some cases by heavy equipment, but most of the time by manual mining. So the level of detail, the small excavations, small removal of pieces or elements on a site is of vital importance and could be enhanced with this type of imagery. Of course, this routing is relevant, particularly in the Middle East, as example, Syria and Afghanistan, but also nowadays in Ukraine. And according to UNESCO, at the beginning of October, more than 200 sites were listed as completely or partially destroyed. And probably they are subject also to looting activities. Another example that I would like to show is other application is the support boundary disputes. It looks that that is something that is not commonly done by satellite imagery, but with this type of resolution that is normally used by an aerial between 10 and 15 centimeters, it could be quite useful. And why? Because we are looking for placement of fences, walls, edges that are the most commonly contested areas. And just this news show that there are at least 6.6 million of Brits that have disputes related to boundary. So an area where the detail of some linear features could be relevant and where imagery could be of extremely good use. Last but not least, just a couple of slides without examples on other possible applications. One, very important, climate security and environmental issues nowadays on the top of the discussions, and where this imagery, HD imagery, could be used for identification of small elements or features like conveyor belts, like pipes and so on, or even drainage systems in several infrastructures. Another one, the disaster response and mitigation, where it is crucial for, essential for the first responders to have the best quality information about the situation on the ground before they go there in order to prepare any assistance and humanitarian aid. Similarly, we could also imagine that this type of imagery would be extremely useful in identification of tents inside IDP camps. Last but not least, another possible area of application would be rule of law. And in this case, like was shown for migration, where we could identify people and some remains that were left by people, we could also use this type of imagery to identify groups of people or groups of equipment or objects that could reveal any irregular activity, even for smuggling or for drug trafficking that normally use also remote locations and where it is difficult to identify with 30 centimeters imagery. So this is basically what I wanted to talk to you this afternoon, and I am happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you very much.
Great. So thank you, Adriano, and thank you to our other speakers, Pascal, Jeff, and Matt, and also to our attendees. We had a great turnout today, and I see that there are a lot of questions, many of which are still unanswered. So I do encourage you to stick around after the completion of the webinar, take a seat at the table in the social lounge. The speakers, as well as my colleagues from European Space Imaging and Maxar, will be there to answer any of your final questions. Thank you again for attending. As I already mentioned, this is our last GeoSeries for 2022, but we will be back in 2023. And of course, you'll receive a recording of today's webinar next week. So with that, I will close today's session, and I look forward to seeing you all in the social lounge. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.